Show me your ways, please teach me your laws. Oh Elohim of my salvation, I'm staying down impatient as a child all the while I'm waiting. Remember not the sins of my youth, lead me in your truth and he'll give your soul ease. The earth shall remain inherited by a seed. The secret of Yah's will who fears Elohim, of who believes everything. And to every word spoken, you can't take heed unless you hear somebody curse you, know you did the same thing. That's why I'm begging Yah for mercy and his love and kindness, cause I know that I ain't worthy.
Oh yeah, give it. Oh yeah, teach it. Oh yeah, bring it. Nothing but
Elohim, his Elohim scattered across the seven seas. Captivity is taking hold upon me, confronting me and now we flee from fallen leaves. The blood and grief from all the blood our people seen, and now we cry, where is the word from Elohim? And so we said that we are his wives to be submissive, but we dismissed it. It is of this reason we have fallen victim to the lies that your root will pray and pursue rebellious of the son, forgotten that he is one. Working the holy ordinance, rejection of reproof, then acknowledge what we do. Now will we turn back to the truth.
Yah's word is the truth, Yah's decrees is the proof. Local 12 just released the scoop. It's the summer of Sam, they calling us ham, made us worship the son of man. And somehow that the moon extolled our style and gave it to Rothschild. Now we exalt the vow, but hit the turnstile. Yah's not be sacrificing things straight. Praise Yah from the rising to the evening to the closing the gates, exposing the fake. Yah give the truth a daybreak. Now the liars can't escape and the haters can't relate to the light the truth make. See the wicked's pride deflate. He adore Yah, magnify Yah, cause he's great.
Your show will go live in 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1.
oh yeah, teach it. Oh yeah, bring it. Nothing but nothing
Shalom, shalom, shalom. Shalom. Shalom, shalom, shalom. Turn it up. First and foremost, giving all praise and honor to the Holy One of Israel, to the Creator of the heaven, the earth, the sea, and all that is there and is, by saying hallelujah. Praise the mighty Yah, and allowed us to come before you another day, bringing to you his great, holy, and exalted words, even the words of truth. My name is Mowreh IshYAH YIsraEL of the house of Israel, the truth, for Yah ordained me to tell you the truth, and this is what I'm going to do. And who is this Yah? Yah is the creator of the heaven, the earth, the sea, and all that is there and is. Yah is the Elohim of our fathers, the Elohim of Abraham, Yitzhak, and Yisrael, whom you may know as Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Yah is our king, he is our judge, he's our lawgiver, and Yahweh is our only savior, and not just of Israel. Yahweh is the savior of the world. And Yah, once again, has allowed us to come before you another day, another week, to bring to you his great, holy, and exalted words, even the words of truth. Yesterday, we brought to your attention that in order for any of us to serve Yahweh, no matter who you are, now, no matter what you are, in order for us to serve him, we must have order. We cannot be out of order in no kind of way, because Yahweh himself is a Elohim of order, and everything about him is order. And this is why the Creator said in the last days that when he returns, he will make the crooked things straight. And make no mistake about it, my beautiful brothers and sisters, there's a lot of crooked things. A lot of crooked things going on, and a lot of crooked things that must be straightened out. But Yahweh said he would do that. But he's an Elohim of order. Everything about him is order, which means if we have a desire to serve him, to worship him, we also must be about order. And Yahweh will order the various things that we need to know about him so that we can learn about him, so that we can know him, and so that we will fear him and keep his commandments. The Creator lets us know in the book of Psalm 37. I just want to read this to you so you can understand why we must talk about the order of Yahweh. In the book of Psalms 37, this is what the Creator lets us know that a lot of people take for granted. In the book of Psalms 37, we will read in the 23rd verse, it says the steps of a good man are ordered by Yahweh, and he delights in his way. And that's how Yahweh deal with good men. That's how Yahweh deal with righteous people. He ordered their steps. He's the one that leads and guides them in a manner and in a way that they can understand how to come before him. And yesterday, we brought to your attention the number one way, the first way, the chief way, the top way that you come before the Most High, that you serve and worship the Most High, is through his word. Here it is. Yahweh came to his people, to his servants. He came to us by his word. This is why the first prophet in the scriptures, the first prophet called a prophet in the scriptures, was named Abraham. And when Yahweh dealt with Abraham in the book of Genesis, the 15th chapter, I want you to see how Yahweh will communicate with this Abraham. At the time, he was known as Abram. And it says in the book of Genesis, the 15th chapter, the very first verse, after these things, the word of Yahweh came to Abram in a vision, saying, fear not, Abram. I am your shield and your exceedingly great reward. Because this is how Yahweh come to his servants, the prophets, but this is how Yahweh deal with his people. He will send his word, and his word by itself is a spirit, to you. This is why this is number one and chief. in how you learn and fear and know the Most High. Because we have a lot of counterfeit words, a lot of counterfeit books has sent this word to them. And it's easy to verify whether this is true. That's why when we go to certain books, like the New Testament, you will never, ever read where Yahweh, the word of Yahweh came to anybody saying. So why would we go to that book looking for the word of Yahweh? There will never be anyone in this book will say, and Elohim said. And why? Because Elohim said nothing to anyone in the New Testament. But not just the New Testament. There's a lot of other books that our people have made relevant, even though Yahweh's word don't exist in the book at all. Yahweh said not one mumbling word. And yes, these are these many books called the Quran, the religion of Islam, or how about Judaism? How about the book of Enoch and the book of Jubilees and the book of Jasher and the book of the Dead? All these books that our people put their trust in, put their value in. And I ask them all the time, well, if these books are what you say they are, the Talmud, where did Yahweh speak in these books? Show me his word, if they that important. And they can't show me not one mumbling word of thus says Yahweh. And why? Because Yahweh don't even speak in these books. And this is why if you want to serve Yahweh, if you want to know Yahweh, that is the first thing you got to know. His word. His word is what he speaks. And what he speaks is his laws, his commandments, his statutes, his judgments, and his covenants. That's what Yahweh speaks to us. And if you're not about these things, it is impossible to be about Yahweh. And if someone's saying something contrary to these things, then you know they there to deceive you. And you don't have to be deceived no more. All you have to do is listen to one thing and one thing only. And I'm going to show you what he told all the prophets to do in the book of Ezekiel, the 3rd chapter. Because this is what we dealt with yesterday. I don't care if it's me. I don't care if it's the man on the moon. If they not saying, thus says Yahweh, know for certain Yahweh has not sent them. In the book of Ezekiel, the 3rd chapter, this is what it says. And I'm going to start reading at the 4th verse. And look how the Creator talked to us. And he said unto me, Son of man, go, get you unto the house of Israel, and speak with my words to them. Who else want to speak to the house of Israel? The house of Israel don't even want to speak to themselves. But yet Yahweh want to speak to the house of Israel, because this is how much he loved his people. He said that his people are the apple of his eye. And if you want to know how sensitive the eye is, try to put your finger on that apple to see how sensitive Yahweh is about his people. And watch what he says. For you are not sent to a people of a strange speech and of a hard language, but to the house of Israel. Yeah, you can go to these other peoples and these foreigners and all these other people and try to take your message to them, but Yahweh didn't send you to them. He sent you to the house of Israel, the very people you don't even want to go to, the very people you're scared of, the very people that you don't even want to talk to. But he sent you to them. And watch what he says. Not to many people of a strange speech and of a hard language, whose words you cannot understand. Surely, had I sent you to them, they would have listened to you. In other words, even though there's a language barrier between us and other people, even though the language is different and the speech is strange, so strange, even when they talk in English, it's hard to understand. And what you're saying, man, I'm just trying to pay a bill, and I can't even understand what you're saying because they done hired some foreigners to take our money. And we can't even understand what they say. I'm just trying to pay a bill. But they have strange speech. But Yahweh did not send us to them. But if he had sent us to them, they would have listened. They still would have did it. We would have broke down the hard speech and the language barrier. And finally, once it was broken down, they would have said, oh, remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. They would have did it. Oh, we cannot eat pork. They would have did it. But watch what he said about the house of Israel. The 7th verse. But the house of Israel will not listen unto you, for they will not listen unto me. For all the house of Israel are impotent and hard-hearted. In other words, Yahweh told his servants, when you go to the house of Israel, don't concern yourself whether they will listen to you or not. I'm letting you know before you even go, they ain't going to listen to you because they won't even listen to me. So while you are concerned about that, don't be concerned about that. There's only one thing and one thing only I want you to be concerned about. And it's in the 11th verse. And this is what it says. And go, get you to them of the captivity, to the children of your people, and speak to them, and tell them, thus says Yahweh, your Elohim, whether they will hear or whether they will forbear. In other words, whether they listen or not, just go tell the house of Israel. That's your job. That's your mission. That's your vision. That must be your undertaking. And why? Because we got a lot of people that's going to the house of Israel and they telling a lot of things, but it's not thus says Yahweh. And now our people are believing in things that Yahweh never said. Yahweh never even spoken. They believe in people that Yahweh ain't never even mentioned out of his mouth. Books that Yahweh ain't even never seen and spoke of. Why are you believing in this? I never spoke of this book. I never called nobody out of this book. And my word is not even in there. And don't be deceived, brothers and sisters. Just because you see truth in a book, that don't mean this book is the truth. You'll find truth everywhere. But Yahweh is the whole truth and nothing but the truth. And this is what we brought to you yesterday about the order of Yahweh. So number one, you must begin to concern yourself with thus says Yahweh. And I know in many of your books, it will say, thus said the Lord, or the Lord came unto me saying, or God said. And they did that on purpose because they wanted to take Yahweh's name out of the book so that they will put some fictitious names that's not even names in the book to deceive you. But all you got to do is seek the Most High. And once you seek the Most High, he will open up your spiritual eyes so you can see that there's only one name they took out of the book, and that's Yahweh. You got brothers going around talking about his name is this and his name is that, and you got to know Paleo Hebrew, you got to know ancient Hebrew, you got to know this Hebrew and that Hebrew and all these types of Hebrews. There's only one name they took out of the book, and his name is Yahweh. These names never did nothing. Yahweh never showed us anything with these names. That's why you just now hearing about them. We didn't learn these laws and commandments and statutes under these fictitious and foreign names that our people are saying, this is the Creator's name. Our people began to learn this stuff after they woke up, thinking they more wiser than they really are. But you're not. And if these names are anything, bring them to us and show us what these names produce. We can show you what Yahweh produced for us. And the very truths that came through Yahweh and Yahweh only. And we come in the name of Yahweh. And we come in the name of thus says Yahweh. Whether you like it or not. Whether you do it or not. Or whether you hear it or forbear it. That's up to you. But make no mistake about it. We coming in thus says Yahweh. And that's number one. But what is number two? What is the order of Yahweh number two? See, his word is number one. Show you how great Yahweh's word is in the book of Psalms. Just want you to see this. This is Psalms 1, I think it's Psalms 137. Or not 137, but Psalms 138. And I'm going to read the first two verses. Show you how great Yahweh's word is. That's why his word is number one. It says in Psalms 138, verse 1 and 2. It says, I will praise you with my whole heart. Before the Elohims will I sing praise unto you. I will worship towards your holy temple and praise your name for your loving kindness and for your truth. For you have magnified your word above all your name. My goodness, I know how great the name of Yahweh is, but he has magnified his word above his name. So any man of wisdom will quickly say, let me know this word. What is this word is about? That his word is that magnified, that I need to know that first. And it's easy. Yahweh don't want nobody walking with him, he don't even want you to even know his name unless you're willing to do his word. Why would you give a man your word when he's not going to hearken to you anyway? He's not going to follow you anyway. Yahweh want a man to prove himself. Walk with me, and then I introduce you to you who I really am and what I'm really about. And then you can know my name. But ain't no sense in me wasting my time. You're not going to walk with me anyway. You're not going to keep my commandments anyway. You're not going to honor me anyway, but you want to know my name. No, my name is precious. My name is great. My name is really number 2. Because number 2, the order of Yah number 2, is how Yahweh establishes things. And everything with Yahweh must be established. You don't have nothing if it ain't established. And Yahweh, on the first day of creation, he said, let there be light. And there was light. And he saw that the light was good. And he separated this light from the darkness. And he called this light day. And this darkness he called night. And there was evening and there was morning. One day. And this first day, this light enabled us to see physically and spiritually. It didn't just open up our eyes to things that's in front of us. But this light opened up our eyes to unseen things. Things that I can't see. Because it must be seen in your mind. It has to be seen in your thoughts. It has to be seen within you. And a lot of people don't know what that is. And that's wisdom. That's understanding. You don't need physical eyes to have wisdom. You got to have spiritual eyes. You don't have to have physical things to have understanding. That's spiritual. And a lot of people see a lot of physical things and they know nothing about spiritual things. And these spiritual things, let me tell you where they come from. They come from Yahweh himself. But look how Yahweh will prepare so that we will know where all these things come from. In the book of Genesis, the first chapter, watch what this says. The 6th verse. Elohim said. You notice it said Elohim said. You're not going to read that in no other book. So why waste your time getting into other books and it ain't even going to tell you Elohim said. Elohim said, let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters, and let it divide the waters from the waters. And Elohim made the firmament and divided the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which were above the firmament. And it was so. And of course, as many of you all know, it was water everywhere. And Yahweh put this firmament in the middle of the waters and began to separate them. 8th verse. And Elohim called the firmament heaven. And the evening and the morning were the 2nd day. And little do people know, they know a lot of things about earth, but they know little about heaven. And the only thing they do know about heaven is what our enemies have taught them, and that is all wrong. You going to heaven And when you die, you're going to heaven and all this type of false teaching. Teaching where Yahweh never even spoke a mumbling word. But what do heaven represent? What was heaven made for? Yahweh made everything in 6 days and rested on the 7th day. So each day, Yahweh designed it so that whatever he made on that day became very relevant, purposed, and in order. He made the light first, and that represented his word. That's why we can't see none without his word. And then Yahweh will make the heavens. But when Yahweh made the heavens, little do people know the heavens represented his great name. Where in the world do you think Yahweh's throne is? It's in heaven. Where do you think Yahweh hears us from? It's in heaven. Why? Because that's where his throne is. Let me show you something. There's only 2 places in the whole entire scriptures where Yahweh said he was hear us from. Only 2 places. And let me show you where they are. Number 1. Watch this. In the book of Genesis, the 4th chapter. Well, let's go to Deuteronomy first. I want to show you Deuteronomy first. Deuteronomy, the 4th chapter. And we're talking about order of Yahweh number 2. Because once you get past Yahweh's word and say, I got that. I understand this. This is the only book that I need to seek Yahweh out of. Because this is the only book that says, thus says Yahweh. This is the only book where it contains and houses his word. I get it. So now what's number 2, Mowreh IshYAH? Well, number 2, now that you're willing to seek Yahweh out of his word, well, now you need to know how important his name is. Because now you're willing to walk with him. So now let me show you about his name. In the book of Deuteronomy, the 4th chapter, watch what it says. In the book of Deuteronomy 4, the 33rd verse. Did ever people hear the voice of Elohim speaking out of the midst of the fire as you have heard it and live? Have you ever heard such a thing? Or has Elohim tried to go and take him a nation from the midst of another nation by temptations, by signs, by wonders, by war, by a mighty hand, by a stretched out arm, by great terrors, according to all that Yahweh your Elohim did for you in Egypt before your eyes? Unto you it was shown, that you might know that Yahweh, he is Elohim, and there is none else beside him. And watch the 36th verse. Out of heaven he made you to hear his voice, that he might instruct you. And upon earth he showed you his great fire, and you heard his words out of the midst of the fire. So we the only people that Yahweh will gather ourselves together so that we can hear his voice right out of heaven. And when did he make heaven? On day 2. And why? Because he wanted you to know the time and the season he wanted you to hear him. Oftentimes our people want Yahweh to hear them. But little do they know, Yahweh wants you to hear him. We praying and complaining and calling upon him and say, bless me and give me and lend me and can you spare? But what are you hearing Yahweh? And Yahweh constantly telling us, Shema YIsraEL, Yah Eloheinu, Yah Echad. He wants us to hear him and hear that he's one. And where do he speak to us from? From heaven. And let me show you the other place. The only other place where Yahweh hears us from. And watch this. Because a lot of people don't know this. And you'll find this in the book of 1 Kings. Watch what it says in 1 Kings, the 8th chapter. The 17th verse, because I want to get right to this. I want to get right into this. Let's start at the 16th verse. Since the day that I brought forth my people Israel out of Egypt, I chose no city out of all the tribes of Israel to build a house, that my name might be therein. But I chose David to be over my people Israel. And it was in the heart of David, my father, to build a house for the name of Yahweh, Elohim of Israel. Now, do y'all see what's going on? Here it is. Yahweh will not have a house built for him, but Yahweh had a house built for his name. And Yahweh said to David, my father, whereas it was in your heart to build a house unto my name, you did well that it was in your heart. Nevertheless, you shall not build the house, but your son that shall come forth out of your loins, he shall build the house unto my name. And why would Yahweh need a house built for his name? What sense does that make? Well, you're about to see why that makes all the sense in the world. Still in the book of 1 Kings, 8th chapter. And we're going to go down to the 27th verse. Because this is where it begins to let you know the truth of why this house is built in his name. Watch what it says. 27th verse. But will Elohim indeed dwell on the earth? No, man. Is that why you think Yahweh had a house built for him? You thought Yahweh was just going to live here and this was going to be Yahweh's house when he traveled the earth? No, this is not why Yahweh had a house built for him, nor was it the reason why David wanted a house built for him. Watch what it says. Behold, the heaven of heavens cannot contain you. How much less this house that I've built? Man, the heavens can't even contain you, Yahweh. This house can't contain you. But watch what it says. Yet have you respect to the prayer of your servant and to his supplication, O Yahweh my Elohim, to listen to the cry and to the prayer which your servant prays before you today, that your eyes may be open toward this house night and day, even toward the place of which you have said, my name shall be there, that you may listen to the prayer which your servant shall make towards this place. And listen you to the supplication of your servant and of your people Israel, when they shall pray toward this place, and hear you in heaven, your dwelling place. And when you hear, forgive. In other words, all the sanctuary, the temple that was built for Yahweh's name, all that was an extension of Yahweh's house, an extension of where Yahweh dwells in heaven. Yahweh not only has a place that he dwells in heaven that he might hear us. And let me tell you where that place is. His throne. Heaven is his throne, and earth is his footstool. But Yahweh also had a place on earth that we can face towards and say our prayers, say our supplications, that he might hear us from heaven. Watch the 34th verse. 33rd and 34th verse. When your people Israel are smitten down before the enemy, because they have sinned against you, and shall turn again to you, and confess your name, and pray, and make supplication unto you in this house, then hear you in heaven, and forgive the sin of your people Israel. And what if you are in the land of your enemies, as we are this day? What do Yahweh have to say about this? Because you must understand the order of Yahweh. The order of Yahweh, number 2, is all about his name. And you will never understand his name if you don't understand his throne, which is heaven, where he hear us from. And you will never understand the house that he will build for his name. These things must be understood. Watch what it says. And we're going to read the 46th verse. If they sin against you, for there is no man that sins not, and you are angry with them, and deliver them to the enemy as Yahweh has done, so that they carry them away captives to the land of the enemy, far or near. And brothers and sisters, you don't get no further than where we at. Yet, if they shall return to themselves in the land where they were carried captives, and repent, and make supplication unto you in the land of them that carried them captives, saying, we have sinned, have done perversely, we have committed wickedness, and so return unto you with all their heart and with all their soul in the land of their enemies, which led them away captive, and pray unto you toward their land, which you gave to their fathers, the city which you have chosen, and the house which you have built for your name. Then hear you their prayer and their supplication in heaven, your dwelling place, and maintain their cause. And forgive your people that have sinned against you, all their transgressions where they have transgressed against you, and give them compassion before them who carry them captive, that they may have compassion on them. And why don't we want to do this, Israel? If you want Yahweh to hear you, why don't you face that place and call upon his name, that he might hear you? But why is this the order of Yahweh number 2? What do this have to do with the second at all? Since number 1 has everything to do with the light and his word. So why do number 2 have everything to do with heaven, hearing, and his name? Because when Yahweh wanted you to know that, and he wanted you to hear it from him, and know beyond a shadow of a doubt that this thing he's doing from heaven, look what Yahweh would do and how he would do it and the time he would do it. For example, since we're in 1 Kings, watch what it says in the book of 1 Kings, the 6th chapter. The very first verse. Show you how Yahweh does what he do. And it came to pass in the 480th year after the children of Israel had come out of the land of Egypt, in the 4th year of Solomon reigns over Israel, in the month of Ziph, which is the 2nd month, that he began to build the house of Yahweh. Now stop right there. We know, reading the book of Genesis, Yahweh will make the heavens where we can call upon him on the 2nd day. And Yahweh is not the author of confusion. All through the scriptures, you're going to see that the truth of Yahweh is totally consistent throughout. And since Yahweh made the heavens on the 2nd day, look when Yahweh will make his house that he will rear up for us to call upon him, to face toward that place that represent his name. You notice this thing was made in the 2nd month. They began to build the house of Yahweh. And why the 2nd month? Because little do people know the second represents Yahweh's name. So whether it's the second month, the second year, the second born, the second day, Yahweh is showing you how to order your steps before him. Now that you got his word, and you know that's number one, that's step number one, Yahweh wants you to know step number two. And step number two, if you inclined to call upon Yah, to send your supplications to Yah, you got to know when Yahweh do things. And he made the heavens second for a reason. Why you think the very house that carry his name also was made in the second, but the second month? And watch this. In the book of 2 Chronicles, the 3rd chapter, so you can see what I'm telling you, the truth. See, Israel need to know, even though you've been an Israelite for a long time, you need to know how Yahweh order things, and you haven't learned things in order. And Jacob, who don't know Yahweh yet, you need to learn how to walk in Yahweh's order. You're like a baby who's crawling, who need to learn how to walk. And step one, concern yourself about thus says Yahweh. But number two, you need to concern yourself of what represents Yahweh's name. And it's his throne in heaven, but it's also his house that represents his name on earth. This is why we turn to this place. And Yahweh will show you how this is manifested throughout all what he would do. 2 Chronicles, the 3rd chapter. Watch what it says. The very first verse. Then Solomon began to build the house of Yahweh at Jerusalem in the Mount Moriah, where Yahweh appeared to David his father, in the place that David had prepared in the threshing floor of Ornan the Jebusite. And watch the second verse. And he began to build in the second day of the second month in the 4th year of his reign. And why the second day? And why the second month? Because the second represents Yahweh's name. The only reason to build a house is for his name. And the only reason to let you know this, so he can hear you from heaven, which was made on the second day. And not only that, watch this. In the book of Exodus, the 40th chapter. Even when Yahweh told his people, instructed his people, all that is willing-hearted, bring me an offering. Bring me an offering of gold and silver and copper, precious jewels and rubies and stones, onyx stones. And our people will bring everything to Yahweh. And how did our people get these things? From Egypt, when they came out of Egypt. But what did the people use these things for? Well, let me tell you. They used these things to build the tabernacle of Yahweh. But watch when they did it. Watch with all that work they did to bring all these things to Yahweh. Look what happens. 16th verse. Exodus 40 and 16. Thus did Moshe, according to all that Yahweh commanded him, so did he. And it came to pass in the first month, in the second year. And why the second year? What happened in the second year? What was so great about this second year? On the first day of the month, that the tabernacle was reared up. Not in the first year, not in the first month, not in the 7th month of the first year, not in the 12th month of the first year, but when the tabernacle of Yahweh was reared up and set up, it was done in the second year. And why? Because the tabernacle represented Yahweh's name. And when Yahweh wanted his name to be represented, it's the second. Not because it's second fiddle. Not because it's second hand. Because the second actually represents how Yahweh would establish any and everything he will go to establish. Why do you think, according to the scriptures and according to the laws of Yahweh, at the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses shall a matter be established? Not 1, but at least 2. Because this how Yahweh established things. So when he made the heaven, he brought forth his name. And when he brought forth his name, anything that Yahweh put his name on, whether it's a building, whether it's a tabernacle, whether it's a month, I don't care what it is, a person, Yahweh is establishing that thing. And he established things through his name. Watch what it says. He established the tabernacle. He established the temple. One in the second day, in the second month, another one in the second year. But watch what he will do during the time of Ezra. In the book of Ezra, the 8th chapter. We're talking about the order of Yahweh number 2. And brothers and sisters, if you desire to be established by Yahweh, then you must prepare with all diligence. You must be committed. You must be perfect before him to wear his name. First, Yahweh want to see if you even desire to know his word. But then if you desire to know his word, to do his word, then he will establish you with his name in the book of Ezra, the 8th chapter. And watch what it says. I'm sorry, not the 8th chapter. Ezra, the 3rd chapter. Ezra, the 3rd chapter. And watch what this says in the 8th verse. Now in the second year of their coming to the house of Elohim. Why the second year? What is it so important about this second year, this second month, this second day? Now in the second year of their coming to the house of Elohim. We still talking about the second. In 1 Kings it said the second month. In 2 Chronicles it said the second month and the second day. In Exodus 40 during the time of Moses it said the second year. And watch what we have here in the book of Ezra, who was coming out of captivity. Now in the second year of their coming to the house of Elohim. And what is this house for? His name. At Jerusalem. In the second month begins Zerubbabel, the son of Shealtiel, and Yeshua, the son of Yosadak, and the remnant of their brethren, the priests and the Levites, and all they that had come out of captivity to Jerusalem, and appointed the Levites from 20 years old and upward. And what did he want them to do? To set forward the work of the house of Yahweh. Why couldn't they do the work in the first month? Why couldn't they do the work in the fourth month? But why was it done in the second month? Why was they inspired to do it the second year of their coming to the house of Elohim at Jerusalem? To do this work, to repair the breaches that was broken down. Because they knew Yahweh. They knew Yahweh's order. And they knew order number 2 of Yahweh had to do with his name. Because heaven is his throne and earth is his footstool. And watch this. Show you that this just did not begin with our people. In the book of Genesis, the 4th chapter, watch what this is. And I'm going to read the 25th verse. And Adam knew his wife again. You know, Adam and Eve, they had a son named Cain. And they had a son named Abel. And Abel was killed by Cain. And this is how the story began afterwards. And Adam knew his wife again. And she bore a son and called his name Self. For Elohim said, she has appointed me another seed instead of Abel, whom Cain slew. So in other words, Self really, according to Eve, according to Adam, Self became their firstborn. In other words, they didn't even count Cain because he was banished from Yahweh. He was nothing to count. So Self became number 1. And watch what it says. And you'll read in Genesis the 5th chapter that amongst this genealogy, Cain is not even reckoned. The 26th verse says, and to Self, to him also there was born a son, and he called his name Enos. Then began man to call upon the name of Yahweh. So when did men start calling on Yahweh? Definitely not with Cain. Abel was killed. They didn't call upon the name of Yahweh with self, who began to be the firstborn. But self had a son, and his name was Enos, which was the second generation after Adam. It was self, then it was Enos. And in this second generation, then began men to call upon the name of Yahweh. And why? Because the name of Yahweh is order number 2. Order number 2. Why would Yahweh have his name number 2? Because you can't establish nothing without Yahweh's name. And this is how Yahweh established everything. So on day 2, he brought forth the heavens, because now I got to establish this light. I got to establish everything that I will do in the first day. I must establish my words. And how did he establish the very words that he would speak, that he was saying to his servants on earth? Well, it was only one way to establish it. By his name. Through his name. And that's why all through the book you will see the word of Yahweh came unto me saying, or thus says Yahweh. Because Yahweh will put his name even on the very words that he will speak. Let every matter be established by the mouth of 2 or more witnesses. This is how Yahweh established things. Let me show you this in the book of Genesis once again, so you can understand the very words that I'm speaking to them, that they might be established. In the book of Genesis 41. Watch this. Genesis 41. We see the temple done in the second month. We see it was done even on the second day. Even when they went to repair the house of Yahweh coming out of Babylon, even that was done in the second month. On the second day. The very first tabernacle of Yahweh was not even reared up until the second year. And all of them represent his name. In the book of Genesis 41, watch what this says. Because Pharaoh had a dream. As a matter of fact, he had 2 dreams. And Yahweh was saying, our father, yourself, to Pharaoh to interpret these dreams. And this what Yosef told Pharaoh. And we're going to read in the book of Genesis 41. And I'll start reading at the 28th verse. Watch what this says now. 41 and 28. This is the thing which I have spoken to Pharaoh. What Elohim is about to do, he shows to Pharaoh. Behold, there come 7 years of great plenty throughout all the land of Egypt. And there shall arise after them 7 years of famine, and all the plenty shall be forgotten in the land of Egypt. And the famine shall consume the land, and the plenty shall not be known in the land by reason of that famine following. For it shall be very grievous. And watch what the Most High says through our father Joseph. And for that, the dream was doubled to Pharaoh twice. The dream is one now, but it was doubled to Pharaoh twice. It is because the thing is established by Elohim, and Elohim will shortly bring it to pass, because this is how Yahweh established what he want one to know and do. At the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses shall the matter be established. And Yahweh wanted his word established. And what did he do? He made the heavens to establish his great words on the second day. Look what else Yahweh would do in the book of Exodus 16. Show you this. In the book of Exodus 16, talking about order of Yahweh number 2. And what is this order of Yahweh number 2? The second. Whether it's the second born, as in the case of Enos, when men began to call upon the name of Yahweh, whether it's the second year, when they began to repair the breaches of the temple coming out of captivity on in the second month. Or rather, it was the original temple that was built in the second month on the second day of the month. Or rather, it was the very first tabernacle reared up in the second year. Well, what will Yahweh do in the book of Exodus, the 16th chapter? And watch what it says in the very first verse. And they took their journey from Elim, and all the congregation of the children of Israel came to the wilderness of Sin, which between Elim and Sinai, on the 15th day of the second month, after the departing out of the land of Egypt. Okay, we see it's talking about the second month. So what is Yahweh about to let us know? And the whole congregation of the children of Israel murmured against Moshe and Aaron in the wilderness. And the children of Israel said to them, would to Elohim that we had died by the hand of Yahweh in the land of Egypt, when we sat by the flesh pots, and when we did eat bread to the full. For you have brought us forth into this wilderness to kill this whole assembly with hunger. See what they said? Not even 30 days. Just 30 days. They left Egypt on the 15th of the first month. Now it's the 15th day of the second month. But watch what Yahweh was saying in the 4th verse. Then said Yahweh to Moses, behold, I will rain bread from heaven for you. And the people shall go out and gather a certain rate every day, that I may prove them whether they will walk in my law or not. In other words, in this second month, Yahweh will do something from heaven that has never, ever been done And when would he do this? In the second month. Why? Because the second month represents his name. And here it is. The people complaining about Yahweh bringing them out of the land of Egypt just to kill them with hunger. And Yahweh will prove them otherwise. And so what did Yahweh do? He rained bread from heaven, which we know of today as manna. And how did Yahweh know that the people complained about him in the second month? Because Yahweh hear from heaven. See, this is what the fools don't understand. Here they get in their little moods. They get to talking and tale-bearing. They get to running their mouth, not realizing Yahweh hear from heaven. Yahweh is real. He's not some idol. It's 4 things that Yahweh said he do that an idol can't do. The very first thing he said he do, he see. And the second thing Yahweh said he do that the idol cannot do is hear. The third thing that Yahweh said he do that an idol can't do is eat. And the fourth thing that no idol can do that Yahweh said he do is smell. But number 2 is hear. And Yahweh heard the grumblings of our people. And in the second month, on the 16th day of the second month, the morning after this evening of this 5th day, Yahweh rained bread down from heaven that we had to gather every day and gather twice as much on the 6th day. And when does all this happen? In the second month. And why? Because Yahweh wants you to know, fool, he hears everything. Why can't we understand that? Not only he see what we're doing, he hear what we're doing. And let me show you that. Let me establish this thing with another scripture in the book of Genesis 29. I want you to see this thing so you can understand how the second represent his name. Why do you think the temple was built in the second year? Why do you think the tabernacle was reared up in the second year? Or the temple was built in the second month on the second day? And the tabernacle was reared up in the second year. And it was repaired in the second year, in the second month, during the time of Ezra. And he rained bread from heaven in the second month because he heard the grumblings, the complaining of the children of Israel. And Yahweh hear your complaints. And Yahweh see your grumblings. And Yahweh see that you don't appreciate him. You don't appreciate his blessings. See, Yahweh see that and hear that. And watch what this says. In the book of Genesis 29.
90 seconds.
The 31st verse. And it says, and when Yahweh saw that Leah was hated, he opened up a room, but Raquel was barren. See, Yahweh saw that she was hated, and watch what it says. And Leah conceived and bore a son, and she called his name Reuben. For she said, surely
60 seconds.
Yahweh has looked upon my affliction. Now, therefore, my husband will love me. Yahweh seen what she was going through. And she seen that Yahweh seen what she was going through. And she named her son Reuben. 33rd verse. And she conceived again and bore a son and said, because Yahweh, this is her second son, because Yahweh has heard that I was hated, he has therefore given me this son also.
10 seconds.
She called his name Simeon, which in Hebrew, Shimon, which means to hear. And to hear represents number 2, the second. As a matter of fact, the number 2 is Shani or Shanae in Hebrew. And when did Yahweh make the heavens for us to hear? Day 2. And when did Yahweh want his name represented that it might establish his word, the heavens, as well as his people? At the second, surely at the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses shall a matter be established. And since Yahweh heard that she was hated, she named him Simeon. Because this is how Yahweh established any and everything that he would do is through his name. And Yahweh won't establish you. But you must get yourself in order. You must have order to everything. And you must have order. You must understand order is essential and necessary for everything. Because without order, all you have is chaos. All you have is confusion. And the very thing that you desire will never, ever be established. So until tomorrow, Yahweh love you, and so do I. Shalom.
What you know about an aura? Call me Deborah. Going to war, read only a Torah. What you know about a deep sleep over the black people in America? Call us the lost sheep. What you know about a tall